Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much for being in attendance today for a fantastic webinar. We expect that there's going to be a lot of questions for our presenters today. And so we do ask that those questions be sent in via the chat. Following each presentation, we will stack up those questions and ask them to the presenters. I will be doing that and then give them some opportunity to respond. So yes, just continue to please use the chat throughout. And again, we're just really grateful to have our two presenters, and our mobility working group chair at SANDAG is with us, Council Member Rodriguez. So we are thrilled as well to have you to kick us off this morning. Thanks.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jose Rodriguez, council member from the City of National City and chair of the SANDAG's Working Mobility Group. I am intrigued by this conversation about speed limits throughout our state. I want to make sure that we continue to support these efforts, want to make our communities more walkable, and they are especially pertinent in cities like ours. We are the densest city in the county. We're going to get even denser, and we want future development, but we want to make sure that it's walkable. So I'm intrigued by the conversation and want to learn more, as well as everybody else on here. Thank you so much for coming.
Excellent. Thank you, Council Member. So today's webinar focuses on changes to speed limit setting practices in effect throughout the state as a result of AB43 and AB1938. These changes have been years in the making and require significant updates to existing guidance, which wouldn't have been possible without the hard work of our first presenter and their colleagues. In turn, with changes to the guidance come changes to the practice of speed limit settings in local jurisdictions. And our second presenter is part of a team that's worked swiftly implementing lower speed limits. We're fortunate to have them share their experiences with us today. Our first presenter, Pauline Wong, is a registered engineer and senior in the speed management section of Caltrans Office of Safety Systems and Devices Division of Safety Programs. I'm passing it over to you, Pauline. Thank you for being available to present this morning on short notice.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity. Does everybody hear me okay? Thank you for the thumbs up. Okay, with that, I would like to share screen. Perfect. Welcome to the AB43 and 1938 Caltrans presentation. I am Pauline Wong, the acting senior for Headquarters Speed Management. Just to give a brief background, Speed Management is one of the 6 branches in the Office of Safety System and Devices, under the Division of Safety Programs. As my title indicates, I am the acting senior. I took over speed management from Johnny Buehler, the original presenter, in October last year. Prior to coming to headquarters, I worked in Caltrans District 12 in Orange County in the Office of Traffic Operations. So let's dig into some backgrounds of AB43 and AB1938. These 2 bills are the direct result of another assembly bill, AB2363. AB2363, titled Zero Traffic Fatality Task Force, was passed in September 2018. It required the Secretary of Transportation to establish a task force which comprised of the legislature, Caltrans, CalStar, local and regional partners, with the goal to establish a task force and the report. In 2020, the task force publishes this reports, which include 8 findings and made 13 recommendations regarding establishing speed limits. AB43 and AB1938 addresses about half of the recommendations with the purpose of providing greater flexibility in setting and reducing speed limit in California. AB43 titles Traffic Safety includes 16 specific provision changes in the California Vehicle Code, granting all agency greater flexibility in setting speed limit with additional flexibilities for local agency. Just to give you a recap, of the 16 provisions, 14 provisions apply to the local authority, while 10 provisions apply to the Department of Transportation. AB 1938, titled Traffic Safety Speed Limit, clarifies a few of AB 43's provisions and their intent. Next slide captures the 16 specific changes in provision in the CVC. Number 2 for section 22352 and number 3 for section 22354 does not apply to the local agency. Of the 16 provisions, 3 provisions are most discussed by the traffic engineers. They are 22358.7, reduction provisions for safe corridor and high concentration of bike and pets. 22358.8, reduction provisions for retaining current and prior speed limits. 22358.9, reduction provisions for business activity district. It's worth noting that these 3 provisions does not currently apply to the state highway systems. The next 2 slides, I would like to demonstrate the difference in flexibility between local roadway and the state highway system. As stated in 22358.6, the total reduction in speed limit shall not exceed 12.4 miles from the 85th percentile speed. Let's give an example of how that 12.4 speed is accomplished. Say the 85th percentile speed is 47.4. Looking at row 2, after rounding, the speed limit should be 45. If the engineers determine that the roadway contains traffic condition not readily available, not readily apparent to a driver, the traffic engineers can apply a 5 miles reduction, changing the speed limit from 45 to 40. If this particular roadway segment is within a safety corridor or it's in land adjacent to high concentration of bicyclists and pedestrians, a local authority engineers can further reduce the speed limit to 35. So in this example, the original 85th percentile speed is 47.4. The end speed limit is 35. That is the reduction of 12.4 miles per hour. It's worth noting that in usual situation, it's rare to have this speed reduction of 12.4 miles per hour. To give another example, say the 85th percentile speed is at 43 miles per hour. After rounding, it will be 45 miles per hour looking at row 3. The engineer can decide to round down instead of round up, making the speed limit to 40 miles per hour. However, the engineer would not have the flexibility to reduce it by 5 miles per hour, even if the engineers determined that the roadway contains traffic condition not readily apparent to driver. In a local roadway situation though, if the roadway is determined to be part of the safety corridor or is in land adjacent to high concentration of bicyclists and pedestrians, the local engineers can reduce the speed by 5 miles per hour, making the speed limit to 35 miles per hour. So in this example, the original speed is 43 miles per hour. The end speed limit is 35 miles per hour, which indicates an 8 miles reduction. Next, let's look at the rounding and additional speed reduction that can be applicable for the state highway system. Since the provision of 22358.7 is not applicable for the state highway system, the maximum speed limit reduction for the on-state roadway is 7.4 miles per hour from the 85th percentile speed. Using the previous example of an 85th percentile speed of 47.4 miles, looking at row 2, after rounding, the speed will be 45. If the engineers determine that there are traffic situations that are not readily apparent to the driver, an engineer can further reduce it by 5 miles per hour, making the speed limit to be 40 miles per hour. Rounding and 5 miles per hour, that's how we got the 7.4 miles per hour. So what have Caltrans done after the passage of AB43? Caltrans has been super busy. Since the passage of AB43 in October 2021, Caltrans has accomplished the following. In November 2021, Caltrans, together with California cities, counties, CHP Automobile Club, Regional Planning Organization representative, and private consultant, formed a 16-member CTCDC subcommittee with the goal to revise current California MUTCD policy for setting speed limit and to comply with the recently approved AB43. In June of last year, the subcommittee finished defining the definition of safety corridor and the development criteria for land or facility generating high concentration of bicyclists or pedestrians. You can find these definitions in the California MUTCD. Further information is being on top of the text. Further information is being provided in Table 2B-105, titled Safety Corridor Definition, and Table 2B-106, titled Requirements to Determine Land or Facility that Generate High Concentration of Bicyclists or Pedestrians. In November of last year, all the provisions has received passing motion in the CTCDC meetings. Following this passing motions, in March of this year, 2023, just 2 months ago, my office has released the revision 7 of the California MUTCD. You can find this new menu in the Caltrans website under menus. What are the key revisions of the California MUTCD revision 7? Besides AB43 and AB1938 that we have talked extensively about, there are other 8 key revisions, including 2 on striping, 1 on sign lighting, 2 on traffic cones, and 1 on temporary traffic control and roundabouts. What are the next steps in my branch? Following the revision of California MUTCD, my branch has been actively updating the California Manual for Setting Speed Limit. We are also in the process of developing a state-sponsored training on the California Manual for Setting Speed Limit. Caltrans, together with UC Berkeley, is conducting a study on a new roadway-based context-sensitive approach to establish speed limit in California. Together with UC Berkeley again, we are establishing a technical assistant resources, including a webpage, to provide practitioner with an overview of speed setting methodology, best practices, and case study. Last but not least, my office, together with Caltrans Design and Caltrans Traffic Operations, are revising the traffic calming guidance, which will be a great companion to speed limit reduction. You can expect this guidance to be published in the coming months, about July of this year. Question and comment page. Well, first, I want to thank you for including me in the SANDAG Mobility Working Group meeting today. I look forward to working and learning together with you. That concludes my presentation.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Pauline. That was wonderful, wonderfully comprehensive summary, and congrats to you and your team for making this all happen. It's really impressive. I have a couple questions that have come through in the chat. Admittedly, the first question is, I think, for me. So I apologize that I never introduced myself. I am a planner here at SANDAG in the Engineering and Construction Division. I do active transportation planning. And I am the staff lead for a task force, which is part of the Mobility Working Group, which Councilmember Rodriguez chairs. And we have our task force is aptly named the AB43 Task Force. So we've been coordinating with local jurisdictions, specifically the city of San Diego, the county of San Diego, the city of Escondido, to do knowledge sharing and find out how they are applying the new speed limit setting practices. And so that has been SANDAG's role with the municipalities. We do have a forthcoming regional Vision Zero action plan, and part of that effort will be technical assistance additionally, which kind of brings us to our second question here. Pauline, the question is, how does an agency define the safety corridor?
That's a very good question. How does an agency define safety corridor? The definition is within the California Manual MUTCD currently, but just to give an overview, there are few options of defining safety corridor. Unfortunately, I must admit that the definition of safety corridor was defined by another office of ours under the pedestrian and bicyclist SME. Just for an overview, the safety corridor is consists of the roadways that has the most accidents. The safety corridor cannot be above 1/5 of your total roadway. And the safety corridor has to be predefined before we can use the CVC 22358.7.
Excellent, Pauline. That's a really good, a very good summary of the definition off the top of your head. So I'm quite impressed. And admittedly, our next presenter may have some examples too. So this is good timing, and we'll be glad if you can stick around, Pauline, for the.
Definitely, I am looking forward to learning from him.
Cool. Okay. So we're pleased to welcome our second presenter, Vicente Romero. Vicente is a transportation planner in the Streets Division of the San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency, where he manages the Vision Zero program. Growing up in Spain, he's a big advocate of public transit and walking and biking the city. He holds a master's degree in urban and regional planning from the University of California, Los Angeles, go Bruins, and a doctorate's degree from the University of Castilla-La Mancha, Spain.
Well, thank you, Josh, and thank you everyone for having us here. It's a pleasure to be able to share our work, the work we've been doing all these years since January of 2022. And yeah, as you mentioned, I'm a transportation planner. I help manage the Vision Zero program at SFMTA. I work on the Streets Division, and I'm here today. Let me share my presentation. Yeah, like I'm saying, I'm here today with my colleague, Michael Jacobson. He's a transportation planner as well at SFMTA, and he's gonna help me answer some of the questions later during the Q&A period. So before starting, I wanted to mention that speeding is the #1 factor in severe and fatal crashes in San Francisco. Last year, 21% of our traffic fatalities in San Francisco were due to speeding. So anything we can do to slow speed will prioritize street safety and save lives. And maybe before starting, I wanted to mention that traditional speed surveys might increase or lower speed limits, but as San Francisco as a city, we made a policy choice to keep the lower speed limits always for safety reasons. So this is the agenda. This is what we're gonna cover. I'm gonna talk briefly about Vision Zero in San Francisco, and then I'll show you some examples of lowering speed limits before AB43, and I will explain later the work we've been doing implementing AB43. So starting with a lot of advocacy from our community partners, Vision Zero was adopted in 2014 in San Francisco. San Francisco was one of the first cities in the US before New York, after New York and Chicago. So this is our action strategy, Vision Zero action strategy that, as you can see here, it has evolved over the years. This document outlines the steps the city will take to get to zero. And so these are our guiding principles in the action strategy. And our core principles are based on prevention and saving lives. And we use data-driven and proven tools all the time. We consider that traffic violence is an equity issue, and that the transportation system should be safe for all road users, for all modes of transportation, in all communities, and everyone in the city. And we focus in Vision Zero, the work we do in Vision Zero, we focus on two main goals or two main big strategies. First one is improving crossings, and the second one is reducing speed. because as I mentioned before, it's a primary crash factor in San Francisco. It's the main one, the one that accounts for more fatalities in San Francisco. So before AB43 went into effect, I'm going to show you 4 different examples of how we lowered this speed limit. So the first one, it's on alleys and alleyways. We were able to lower speed limits to 15 miles per hour using these CVC provisions that says that alleys can be posted 15 miles per hour. And in San Francisco, any street narrower than 25 feet is an alley. This includes lots of alleyways, but also just normal streets that happen to be narrow, just like the one here in this picture. The second example, in 2011, using AB321 that passed in 2007, we were able to lower speed limits around school zones, 500 feet around school zones. We lowered 100% of all our schools, public and private, and we installed 800 signs, and that's the cost over there, almost over $350,000. And we cover all of our public and private schools. Another area where we lower speed, it's around senior zones. We know, through all our data, the children and older adults or seniors are some of the most vulnerable populations to speed-related crashes and injuries. And so we, in 2020, we did this exercise with the Department of Public Health here in San Francisco. We superimposed the areas where seniors and people with disabilities live to the high injury network. And so we were able to locate or to see where there were crashes with seniors and people with disabilities. And so just using traditional speed surveys, mostly in the areas or in the senior areas, senior zones near main arterials, we were able to lower speed limits from 30 to 25 miles per hour. We have done this only around 10 locations in the city, so it's a work in progress still. Later on in 2021, during the pandemic, we were able to lower speed limits to 20 miles per hour in an entire neighborhood, with that neighborhood-wide scale in the Tenderloin. Again, we use just traditional speed surveys, and this was our first neighborhood-wide 20 miles per hour zone in the Tenderloin. I have to say that this area, every single of these streets are on the high injury network. There is a large quantity of vulnerable population, different vulnerable populations. There's a history of crashes. There is it's a high density area, lots of pedestrians, lots of bikes. So we wanted to see what was the effect of lowering the speed limit at the entire neighborhood level. So again, we did this in 2021, just using traditional speed surveys. We did also this on Market Street, this same strategy. And so again, just using regular speed limits, we noticed after surveying every single street that we were able to lower the speed limit to 20 miles per hour because speeds were already low, that whole neighborhood. I also wanted to, so pair with this work of decreasing to 20 miles per hour, we pair this work with no turn on red also to keep crosswalk clear and reduce close call. I go back to the main goals that we have in Vision Zero, improving crossings and lowering speed. So we wanted to do both at the same time. And we actually got pretty good results. And we're now expanding these no turn on red to the other 20 miles per hour business activity district. that we're lowering thanks to AB43. So we started the last tool that we have to lower speed limits. It's AB43, and here sadly I have to say we still haven't thought about the safety corridors. In San Francisco, we realized that the most significant changes would be in commercial districts. And so all this time, this whole year, we've been focusing just on commercial corridors because we have a lot of them. And so we have a lot of work. Our sign shops are also pretty busy with this project, AB43, but also with other projects. So we haven't been able to define safety corridors or even like plan or think about them. So even before AB43 went into law, we started to plan for it before that. So we went ahead and planned. We thought about the budget, we talked to the sign shops, and we started thinking or selecting the possible corridors that we were going to be able to decrease the speed. We didn't want to wait. We made sure that the public and politicians understood that this was urgent, and we wanted to seize this opportunity right away. So this is the initial proposal. Again, this exercise was done back in November of 2021, right after AB43 went into effect. And so we started to consider business activity districts at the very beginning. We had actually a wealth of streets. And because the business activity definition, I guess similar to the safety corridors definition, changed many times, we weren't able to select streets until that final definition was already set. So it was a very iterative approach. We used the zoning layer that we have on our online site, data SF, and we took the commercial or mixed use and the neighborhood commercial or transit district. We were thinking about any retail or commercial use that generates foot traffic. And so again, also, like adding to the zoning layer, we wanted to make sure that the corridors or the streets that we chose, they were going to be on the high injury network as well. And so later on in different phases, in other phases, the corridors might not be on the high injury network, but at the very beginning, we wanted to make sure that those corridors were on the high injury network. And so what type of corridors are we talking about? As you can see here, they're pretty dense in terms of residential use, but also in terms of business use. They're pretty dense. There is a lot of pedestrians. There is a lot of bikes. There is a lot of traffic, and so these are some pictures. This is other pictures just showing that high density that we're talking about. So like you guys, you can make have an idea in mind of what we're talking about. Pretty dense and very busy corridors. So right before November of 2021, we did that exercise of analyzing and the streets that could be possible. We had this review process intra and interagency. In November of 2021, we had our first public hearing for phase 1. We only chose 7 corridors, and we made sure that those first 7 corridors were distributed throughout the city in different districts to make up a higher impact, and so everyone or at least a large quantity of people like knew or have heard about this new speed limit change. In December, we had the board approval, and then 30 days after that approval, we could start implementing already. So from January to April of 2022, we implemented phase 1. We did 2 corridors per month, And then in early spring of 2022, we proposed phase 2. And from summer of 2022 to fall to this coming fall of 2023, we are implementing phase 2, which are 35 corridors, and then 10 more corridors that district supervisor came to us and asked for those 10 corridors in their district. And so in spring, right now we're actually proposing phase 3, batch 1. We work in batches to make it easier for the public hearing and then the MTA board to legislate. And that is going to be 23 corridors. We're going to go to public hearing this month and in the month of June. And in winter, we're going to start implementing this phase 3. But we are keeping, analyzing the possible corridors that we can do in the future. So we have more than 50 corridors under review. And then in 2024, we're going to start planning and implementing safety corridors once. But again, we still haven't thought about it. Because we have so much work with the business activity district that we haven't started with that yet. So how did we do the legislation part? First we did that screening exercise with the initial 7 corridors. Right after we posted a blog, and then with that blog we talked with the stakeholders, with internal and external stakeholders. We haven't done outreach for this project because it's for safety reasons. It's not for a reconfiguration project. Then we seek internal and external approval. In San Francisco, transit belongs to MTA, so that was an internal approval. They were on board since the very beginning. They didn't object to on something that would slow them down. Then we seek external approval, police department, fire department, public works. The police department, they're the ones that deal with enforcement, and they've been actually supported, but they haven't been active giving out tickets. Because for us, the 20 miles per hour reduction is more educational. We don't take this stick approach. And we want to tell people that they have to slow down, and that's why they haven't been active giving out tickets. And so after that, we post the notices to prepare for the public hearing. We went to public comment. In general, in San Francisco, we haven't had a public backlash. We had very positive comments. If anything, some skepticism from the public in the sense that, yeah, this is great, but no one will slow down. But in general, there was a general acceptance. And so after that, the board of directors for final approval, and after that, 30 days, we can start implementing. So what's the situation as of 2022? Since January to December of 2022, we have completed 28 corridors. We have done around 2 per month. Some months we were able to do 3. The length of these corridors, as you can see here in the map, they can go from 1 block to 2 miles long. So it depends. We have done 19 miles of 20 miles per hour corridors, and our goal is to reach 70 miles. We have installed around 300 signs, more than 300 signs at a cost of $500 each sign, which includes labor and materials. Maybe another thing to mention is the spacing. For the work before AB43, the work we did in the Tenderloin, we were putting spacing signs every 500 feet, or every block or every other block, because we wanted to use these metal signs as our outreach. The more people see it, the more it's gonna sink in. And so right now with AB43, we're actually following the example of Seattle, and we're spacing them at every quarter of a mile. And our advice, again, it's try to saturate the street because it's actually a dramatic change. Don't be cheap and have more signage than less, because people are gonna notice better. They're gonna be aware of the new speed change. And again, yeah, these signs for us is our outreach campaign. It's more educational for us, so it's gonna be in people's mind more if people see more signs often. We're also pairing this signature work with education and outreach. We are putting ads on transit shelters, on light pole banners, like the picture I showed you earlier, news racks, online ads. We partnered with the DMV. Here, the picture of the bottom. There is, like for people when they go to the DMV, there is ads on the screens telling them about this new speed limit. And then another important part of our work is the outreach, the door-to-door outreach that we do. So every time a corridor is implemented, we tell our street outreach team, as you can see here, and we go business by business in every single corridor, talking to all of them and telling them about the new speed limit. We drop these palm cards, as you can see here, in different languages, in Spanish, in English, and in Chinese. And then we have these posters that we also post throughout the street, along the street. And so once the corridors are implemented, we tell the street outreach team, but we also notify the police department. We notify the navigation apps. We notify Google Apps and Apple Maps and all of the navigation apps of the new speed limit. We talk to transit internally. We tell them what corridors are going to be 20 miles per hour. And then we also tell our evaluation program, because we also want to evaluate some of these corridors. And then we upload the new speed limit to this map that you can see here. This is the web address. So it's accessible for everyone. Everyone can access and see it. So this is the first evaluation that we had. We did 9 corridors in this sample, and we looked at pre and post implementation data. The good news is that the majority of drivers are going at or below the posted speed limit, but the 20 miles per hour signs show minimal change to reducing vehicle speeds. This is the graph for the average speed, but the 85th percentile graph speed look very similar. And so additional changes are needed to lower speed limit. And we're actually working beyond signature and education. And we're thinking about adding or putting speed radar signs. And we secure funding through the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. We're gonna use part of the money to buy some speed radar signs, and we're gonna distribute these speed radar signs throughout the city. So while our evaluation results are mixed, we know that other cities have seen other benefits from signature alone, Seattle or Boston. So speed, but I have to say that speeds in these high volume business corridors were already low to start off. So AB43, if anything, has allowed San Francisco to reset signature to the appropriate limit. This high visibility signature alone with our education and outreach strategies help reinforce San Francisco's priority to slow speeds in San Francisco. So we're moving along with our work in 2023, signature implementation, and we'll expand in 2024 with this, when the safety corridors guidance is out. But I have to say that this work is only one tool in our speed management work. And in that regard, earlier this year in 2023, we published this, our speed management plan, where we focus on, again, slower speeds and safer crossings. And within slower speed, we have different strategies like our quick build program, traffic calming, road diets, the active transportation network. And one of those strategies is the speed limit reductions, the ones that we have talked about before. So that's the presentation of the work we've been doing so far, and I'll be happy to take questions along with my colleague, Michael.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you, Vicente. It's so impressive. Obviously, the San Francisco residents and visitors are lucky to have your team doing this work. We're all fortunate in California that your team have been leaders in this work.
Mhm. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. We've had a few questions come in the chat, and I expect that Pauline will all have very helpful responses. So the first question I can help answer partly, and I have an offer for you and Pauline both. So there have been the questions, of course, of you'll share your presentations, and I will note that this is being recorded. And so we will have a link to the recording up on YouTube as soon as today, and we'll send out a link to where that will be. And then Vicente, Pauline, do you want us to post your presentations as PDFs?
Absolutely. Yeah, no problem.
I have no problem either.
Okay, cool. Thank you. All right. So the first question for Pauline, is it true that provisions for establishing safety corridors are not applicable until June 30th, 2024? And does Caltrans know if the June 30th, 2024 deadline for the adjudication tool is a goal that we are working toward?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It is true. In the CVC, it states that the adjudication tool, which is being developed by the Judicial Council, would need to be in place or by June of 2024 before they can use the flexibility as stated in 22358.7. Unfortunately, Caltrans is not part of the development of this tool, nor were we invited to participate in the development of this tool. So I do not have more information about where this tool is, when it will be completed either. But it is true, and it's worth to note that right now the flexibility is not available. I suggest that we reach out to maybe your legislation council members.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, the end of June 2024 will be here before we know it, so we might as well be prepared. So to Vicente, have any challenges or pushback been encountered during implementation, for example, with freight or emergency response times, specific communities or elected officials?
No, not that I know of. We've been, if anything, yeah, like the supervisors and everyone, they have supported us, and it was, again, is lowering speed limit has been a goal for us in the city. So everyone was on board. We haven't had issues. Again, police department was on board. Transit was on board. Something that they could slow them down. So we haven't had any backlash or like any issues in that sense.
Amazing. Well, it sounds like y'all did all the right outreach ahead of time too. So
like all the public hearing there is a lot of people that call, to public hearing supporting the speed limit, and if anything, they always say, why don't you do more? Like why? Like that's the comment that we hear, not the opposite.
Great. So Pauline, if a safety corridor roadway has its speed limit adjusted based on AB43 and subsequently the safety corridor is refined and no longer includes that specific roadway segment, can the speed limit remain?
That's a great question. I actually did talk to the safety corridor person about the same question. And yes, the speed limit should remain. The reason is because we assume that the corridor got removed from the high engineering network because of the reduced speed. So why wouldn't we support the lower speed limit?
That's great. Good rationale. Cool. So yeah, this is sort of a follow-on question. to you, Vicente, but has there been any feedback specifically from SFPD or other law enforcement agencies regarding their experiences with citations on the streets with revised speed limits and follow-up from any court cases that you can speak to?
I'm unaware of any. Again, as I mentioned before, this is more educational for us. People have to slow down, and so the police department, they've been on board. They know we notify them of every time a corridor is changed. We notify them, but they're not active giving out tickets. They don't. If anything, when we do the door-to-door outreach to all the businesses, a common comment that we have is that, yeah, like they're kind of skeptical. When it comes to enforcement, yeah, they say, okay, this is good, but who's gonna enforce this? The police department, they are aware, they know of the change. So that's on the police department. We don't control enforcement that way, but we haven't had any issues with them. We haven't heard, like any backlash in that sense. I don't know if my colleague Mike knows, but yeah, like that's been the situation. Yeah.
Good. So this could be for both of you. It's a very specific question about engineering and traffic surveys and whether or not there are examples of defining the safety corridor in an engineering and traffic survey. And I do kind of want to take a moment to clarify for myself if it's the safety corridor or the high concentration of bike and ped that is the still outstanding definition that requires the online adjudication tool, or is it both? So sorry, that's two questions.
All right, I'll answer the second part. I think the definition is out there already, both the safety corridor and the land on the high concentration of bike and pets. That definition is out, is set. The adjudication tool is for equity purposes. So it's another thing that you can say. So yeah, the definition is set and you can view it in the California MUTCD.
I see. Yeah, good. I think that's a great response. So it's easy to, you mean the application can be applied and the definition is set. So there's no reason why you can't start to identify these segments of a jurisdiction's roadways as such.
That is true. I encourage people to start identifying. So when the time comes, when the tool is ready, or when the date comes, June 2024, we can start implementing this flexibility.
Excellent. Okay. So Vicente, are all these new 20-mile-per-hour streets surveyed with the speed survey to justify lowering speed? Any unsurveyed streets that were lowered? And if so, was there an ordinance adopted to enact such lowering?
So when implemented AB43, we those corridors that I show you in the map, none of them have done any traditional speed survey. We're just using AB43 and we analyze, again, we do that exercise of like picking commercial corridors and we just legislate them, and right away we don't do speed surveys. We do speed surveys for the other examples that, you know, the traditional before AB43, but not for the 20 miles per hour on business corridors.
Got it. Yeah. So for those streets, like you said, I think that answers the ordinance question. You legislate them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. AB43 says that a local authority, for either of you, I think, shall not deem more than 1/5, 40% of their streets as safety corridors. Do you interpret this as 1/5 of all streets, perhaps a total of roadway mileage within a jurisdiction, or non-local or non-primary facing streets that speed zoning is conducted in? I'm going to try to interpret that to include maybe the state highway system. I don't know. Maybe I'm not going to try to interpret that, but I'll leave the question hanging here.
Okay, I can try to answer that. 1/5 of all street that belongs to the jurisdiction. It counts as the center mile of the street, not the lane mile. And it includes all street, including residential street. Of course, private street that does not belong to the jurisdiction is not part of, would not be counted as the roadway network within the jurisdiction. So the 1/5 will not count those private streets.
Excellent. Okay, here's my personal question then. What about a university campus?
If it is the university campus and those streets belongs to the jurisdiction, meaning a city or a county, then of course those streets should be counted.
Okay. Thanks. So Vicente, what is the expected reduction percentage in fatalities in San Francisco year to year when the program is fully implemented? Because that's the speed management plan program.
We actually haven't checked for that. We don't know what's going to be the expected reduction in fatalities, but we're hoping that they will reduce, because one is too many and our goal is to get to 0. So we have a lot of tools on our Vision Zero action strategy, and we're trying to apply all of them. These 20 miles per hour business activity districts are just one tool. So, but yeah, I don't have a percentage.
Okay. Yeah, as you said, towards 0. Does Caltrans have contact points or know how the local agencies can stay up to date on the adjudication tool development? I know you mentioned this is something to talk to local legislators about and the court system. So no worries if you don't have a good contact.
Actually, I do not have an answer. I tried to ask the legislative affair, but they haven't got back to me yet. So I do not have an answer better than anybody else.
Okay, thanks, Pauline. If you do come up with an answer, I will report out to folks in attendance and certainly to our mobility working group. So I'm glad that you and I have each other's contact.
That's right.
Cool. So a question for either of y'all. I believe that under CVC 22358.6B, may lower the speed limit an additional 5 miles per hour for pedestrian and bicyclist safety. Can you then lower it an additional 5 miles per hour for a corridor that's adjacent to the high concentration of bikes and pets, which is then CVC 22358.7? So using 0.6 and 0.7 in conjunction.
That's a great question. Yes, the answer is yes. You can use 22358.6 and 22358.7 together. 22358.6, for the locals, you can use the presence of bikes and pets. For state highway, we can use like a high crash rate, or roadway with roadside or traffic conditions that's not readily apparent to the drivers. But for local, yes, I do know that in the CVC, the local has more flexibility of using that 5 miles per hour. And yes, you can combine that 5 miles per hour as stated in CVC 627 together with the 5 miles per hour that's available for local jurisdiction in 22358.7.
Excellent, thanks. A really excellent response, Pauline. You know it forward and backwards. So Vicente, do you know if SFMTA plans to follow up with SFPD to determine if enforcement of the 20-mile-per-hour speed limit stands up in court? And have there been any appealed or challenges in traffic court? Like, sort of, yeah, same question before. So
Yeah, we
sorry.
again, you know, like we get along with PD, they know about our work and they're enforcing it. It's part of their, you know, their work. But yeah, we're not seeing cases in court or yeah. Sorry, I don't have an example.
Thanks, Vicente. Again, yeah, keep us posted. You know, either way, if you do, this is something that we've discussed here as that perhaps in the future, you know, this topic comes up again, especially, you know, a year from now is approaching the June 30th date. We'd love to host this again and everybody apprised of all the developments here. So I just really want to thank you both so much for sharing so much insight and speaking to your work, which has been excellent in this space. So just really grateful. And then I got to also thank the team here at SANDAG, Ashley Wiley in particular, for helping to pull this off. And from ITE, Fong Wen, who's just been the MVP of this webinar. So behind the scenes, much appreciated. And just thank you all for being with us today.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a pleasure.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Excellent. Bye, everyone.